friends. At this time, we are going to begin the funeral services for Sid Doppelt. Again, we also thank you and welcome you, those of you who are joining us online via the live stream. Your presence, while not physically here, is definitely felt and acknowledged by the family, so thank you. For those of you here, if you have a cell phone or pager, I would ask for you to just take a moment to make sure it's off or it's in the silent mode. And officiating today's services will be Rabbi Charlene Brooks. As we begin the service, the rabbi will lead the immediate mourners in the tradition of Kriya.
We're going to begin today with a very, very traditional psalm, one that King David wrote when his own son had passed away. He wrote this psalm to make sense of everything, his relationship with God, his love for his son. It brought him comfort. And for generations and generations and generations, it has been bringing us comfort. And I will do this in English. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forevermore. We are here today to honor and celebrate Sid Doppelt. And there was so much love that I heard and understood from the family when I spoke with them. And I want very much for them to come up and speak and share some of that with you. And first, I'm going to ask Debbie to come up and speak.
So I first met Sid, Dad, in 1952. Other than Judy, I've known him longer than anybody in this room, I think. I have the distinct privilege of being able to be the first person to call him Dad. The 1950s, he was ever-present Dad, both in spirit and always there for me, and that's continued for these 7 decades. Wow. The 1950s began with him singing me the bottle song. It was a Joe Stafford song, You Belong to Me. Refrigerator rides, you guys all know it, put you up in the refrigerator. We thought that was a lot of fun. Sledding in Chicago Gompers Park, swimming to the island at Waveland Pool, Thursday night swim at the YMCA, all wonderful 1950s memories with Dad. During the 60s, I did a great job putting them to the test, but we all got through it. Even though they never let me go to that Beatles concert that I had tickets to, but I did forgive Mom and Dad for that. He always had a good perspective, and we got through the 60s unscathed. In the 70s, I gave Mom and Dad their first chance at being grandparents. 1976 with Eli. They calmed down after they learned he was born at home. Got through it. And again in 1978 with the birth of Sari. Mom and Dad could have written a book on how to grandparent. They did just a phenomenal job on grandparenting, and got some evidence sitting in the second row. During the 1980s, Mom and Dad came to visit us, Central Illinois, very often, and as the kids got older, they were here for school plays, sporting events, lots of milestones. One weekend they came, my kids were newspaper carriers, and Mom and Dad got up early on the Sunday morning and rolled the papers and delivered them, and that was kind of fun. Let's see, the 1990s, Scrabble became our family game. Dad always won. He had this amazing ability to put re or un in front of any verb and insisted it was a word, and so we were good with that. He and Mom attended a bunch of graduations of all of us. Let's see, in 2003, 2004, Mom and Dad acquired a new role, that of being great-grandparents, and that was thanks to Eli's 2 kids. Let's see what I want to say here. Thanks to FaceTime, in recent years, we've been able to have good contact with Dad, and especially even the last few weeks, and family that's lived out of town have been able to stay connected with Dad. Throughout my life, Dad's been a role model on how to live life to the fullest, knowing what's important, decision-making. He's guided me through many and most decisions, and he's been my rock and made me feel safe and secure. At Thanksgiving, I had three beautiful days with Dad. A few days before Thanksgiving, we had spaghetti dinner at his request. Steve and Karen and I had spaghetti dinner with Dad. I don't know what else I want to say. Anyways, he'll always be with me, and we love him.
Thank you so much, Debbie. It's so wonderful that you could share. I know how hard it is to speak at this moment. And now I am going to ask Rick to come up and share a few words.
Take this off, very daring of me. A few years ago, my brother wrote a song about my dad, and the first line, if I recall, is, "What do you say about a man who plays the ukulele?" And he did play one, and all four of us kids would sing Edelweiss along with him, and that was really the start of, I think, the music in my family. We all thought we were the Von Trapp family. It's a joke. I would have probably changed the words of your song, Steve. The first ones would be, what do you say about a man who had, to the day of his death, no regrets? I for many of the years, of the last few years, for whatever reason, kept pressing him and saying, tell me what your regrets were. And he said, Rick, I don't have any. And I still continue to think how remarkable that is. Can any of you think of anyone in your life, including yourself, that has no regrets, let alone no regrets through 93 years? I certainly couldn't make that claim. And it's really a sign of a life well lived. I correct myself. He did have one regret. He always said he hated the choice of Illinois Institute of Technology, going there. And when I asked him why, he said, well, there were very few women there, and they were all unattractive. Which is odd because he was newly married at that point. I'm not really sure what that was all about. But actually, I think IIT was actually a good fit because my dad, if you really knew him, he had the mind and the spirit and the skills of an engineer. He was very, we have a bunch of adjectives for it, fastidious, neatnik, Mr. Perfection, all organized. Today they'd say obsessive compulsive, but he was basically a real engineer by mindset, and I say that in a positive way. We all know about his garage, and the garage floor that everybody could eat off of. It was as clean as a hospital operating room. He would trim his weeping willow tree in the backyard on Greenleaf, almost like an umbrella, so it wasn't weeping. I don't know if any of you know this, but he had that ugly gold shag carpet in our living room in Wilmette, and he would every weekend rake it to make sure it stood up for company. It's who he was, and these were his idiosyncrasies. I continue to think, I'm starting to really believe there is a great beyond up there, and I'd like to think of him on some cloud, very organized cloud. You look up, it's the neatest. He's right now taking his angel wings off and his halo, and he's hanging them up in just such a way, just like he had his shoes hanging in the garage. And my mom is on the cloud next to him, rolling her eyes, I'm sure. As you can tell from my comments, my relationship with my dad was very loving, but I teased the hell out of him, and vice versa. And Jill often had to caution me, don't tease him so much, but he understood. But beyond the teasing, there were a whole bunch of great memories. All four of us have memories as a group, a collection with my mom and dad, but my particular memories often centered around going to sporting events or theater events or movies. When the Cubs turned on the lights for the first time at Wrigley Field, I was sitting right by him for that first night game. 2003, sixth game of the National League Championship Series when Steve Bartman spoiled their effort to go to the World Series. I remember my dad sitting next to me and just slumping in his seat as if the weight of the world had just landed on him. We were at the 1971 Stanley Cup Finals Game 7 when they lost to the Canadiens. We did a lot of watching of losing games, but it was still a remembrance. And movies, I can remember going to the old Northtown Theater on Western and Devon. He had just read the book The Exorcist and had to see it the very first night it opened, and he grabbed my hand with fear like there was no tomorrow. But my sweetest memories are really the last 25, 30 years when first Jill came into my life, our life, and then we moved back here, and two little varmints joined the pack. I say varmints because my dad would call them that, and my dad had nicknames for every one of us, and that was part of his thing, and I've ripped him off regularly. He was there for all of our kid events, and Jill and I and Mitchell and Natalie were just spoiled that he was there for every baseball game, not every soccer game, that wasn't his thing. But we pulled him out of retirement as a coach to coach Mitchell. He was there for Mitchell's first haircut. He went to every one of Natalie's theater events and charisma events. And I remember she was in the play Our Town. And my dad always used to say, I hope I live long enough to see Natalie get married. And I'm not an actuary, but I knew that was not going to happen. But her role, she came out in a wedding dress. And I leaned over to him and I said, Dad, you're seeing her get married. And a tear came to his eye, and it just killed me. He, in addition to all of those things, he recycled all of the things, the refrigerator rides, Mr. Tickle Timer, all of those things that you grandkids experience, he had with Debbie, Lori, Steve, and me. He just recycled them. And frankly, I shamelessly ripped them off as well with my kids. In recent years, though, as his health declined, Jill, God bless her, really became a major caretaker along with Steve. Jill was taking him to every doctor visit, every dentist visit, the arranging for the full-time help that came to be. And I talk about the Steve and Jill alliance. You two were great in the last few years. And I sometimes felt sad and responsible that Jill was bearing the complete burden of this. And then I said that to her, and Jill said, "It's bonus time for me with Dad." And he treated her like a daughter. And I know he treated you like a son, Steve. And I'm just so grateful for those years. And I kind of wish I'd gone to a few of those doctor visits just to have that bonus time. Despite my comments about my dad being an engineering type, he had a kind of peculiar, strangely enough, spirituality and mystical side to him that most people didn't see, and that's not typical for an engineer. And I'll give you one anecdote before I hang up here that some of you may know. So it was 1980, and I was living in California. And we were in a little town square. My mom, my dad, and Steve, I think, came out to visit over the holidays, and it was New Year's Eve, and we were in the middle of the town square, very crowded little Santa Cruz town, if you've ever been there. And little old man came out of the crowd out of nowhere, came right up to my dad's face. I was standing next to him and said, "Having a good time, Irish?" And then he darted into the crowd, never saw him again. And my dad turned white as a ghost. And I asked him, what was that all about? And he said, well, my grandfather, who had died 3 years earlier, he had called him Irish. I didn't know that. So my dad became convinced that my grandfather had resurfaced to comfort him and say hello. And after that, we agreed that we were going to have some sort of signal when he went. And my dad, for whatever reason, used to nickname me among all the different nicknames, Hawkeye. This is way before MASH was a movie or TV show. I don't know where he got that name, but he called me Hawkeye, and we agreed that there was going to be my sign when he came back, and I'd have somebody coming out of the blue to call me Hawkeye. And I don't know if it's going to happen, but I'm here, and I'm going to wait for someone over my rest of my life to call me Hawkeye. But I want to conclude, I don't think I have to wait for that to happen. When I went through his estate documents a couple weeks ago, seeing that this was about to happen, I'm his executor, I found his will and trust, and I found a letter, an envelope, all seriousness, that I'd never seen before, that said to Rick. And even though it said to Rick, me individually, I know it was to Rick as executor and speaking before you. And my dad was not poetic by any means, but he left me and us with these words. I'm just reading verbatim. It's labeled, "To those I love and those who love me. When I'm gone, release me, let me go. I have so many things to see and do. You mustn't tie yourself to me with tears. Be happy that we had so many years. I gave you my love, you can only guess how much you gave to me in happiness. I thank you for your love you each have shown, but now it's time I travel on alone. So grieve a while for me if grieve you must. Then let your grief be comforted by trust. It's only for a while that we must part, so bless the memories within your heart. I won't be far away, for life goes on, so if you need me, call and I'll come. Though you can't see or touch me, I'll be near, and if you listened with your heart, you'll hear. Listened with your heart, you'll hear. All of my love around you, soft and clear. And then when you must come this way alone, I'll greet you with a smile and welcome home." So I don't need to wait for someone to come down and say, "Hey, Hawkeye." I know he's here. Love you, Dad.
That was beautiful. Thank you. And now, Lori, please share with us your words.
One boy, one special boy, one boy to walk with and talk with, one boy that's the way it should be. This song is from Bye Bye Bird, the first movie musical my dad introduced me to. He and I would sing it together all the time, and he was that one special boy. He was my first Valentine. He was my daddy. Everyone knows the accomplished, successful, precise, and neat side of my dad. He was organized beyond belief with his little black book. He never went anywhere late, and he was meticulous to a T. One of his friends even joked that his cars had to wipe their tires before they pulled into the garage. And because of my dad, I have a ping pong ball hanging in the garage, and I never let my gas tank get half full, half empty. But today, I want to talk about a different side of my dad, the thoughtful, fun, creative, and passionate side. I was a daddy's girl. When I was sick, he would never fail to bring me red lace licorice or Archie comic books to cheer me up. When I had car or other troubles in my teenage years, he was always there to the rescue. When I moved out east and we'd come to visit, he always made sure there was Popeye's chicken for Stephen and sweet rolls for me and the kids. And he even used to mail us frozen sweet rolls to enjoy back home. When visiting them, Dad would go shopping with Mom and me, even though he hated shopping, but he wanted to have extra time with me. And he'd always be the one to find something to buy, not my mom and I. When he'd visit us, he would go around the house fixing things that I had a list for, but he'd always have time to play with the kids and me, wholeheartedly. My dad could make any mundane thing fun, whether swimming in a pool, taking a sled ride to Alpa drugstore during the blizzard, sitting in his recliner playing word association games, or visiting with Mr. Tickletimer. Even sitting at a red light waiting for it to go green became an adventure. And Dad never missed an opportunity to dress up at Halloween or enter a hotel sexy leg contest. And he'd always win. Dad carpooled me all the time and was an active participant in all the girl conversation. When he dropped me off to meet friends, he often would join us for a while and just to sit and talk and catch up with everyone. And everyone loved loved talking and joking with him. Dad was so creative. He made up games and special places for us all to play. He also, as Rick said, gave everyone nicknames. And to this day, my husband, Stephen, only calls me by that name. As a little girl, Dad would make up stories about Jeannie and Jenny and tell them to me. Then, when I had my own kids, he would do the same for my girls and change the names and the adventures for the boys. I'm sure he's somewhat responsible for my love of all J names. When I was a little older, he and Mom would often throw themed bridge parties, and I would help host and pass out appetizers. I loved talking to all of their friends, and they had so many. And who else but my dad can make an old basement box filled with old, should-be-thrown-out toys become a cherished treasure box that every grandchild couldn't wait to play with. Dad was so passionate. He loved the Bears and the Cubs. I gave him my doll pillow to sit on during those long, cold Soldier Field games, and I went to many baseball games with him. I'm so grateful he got to experience the Super Bowl shuffle, that he was able to film A League of Their Own in its beloved Wrigley Field, and that he got to finally see the Cubs win the World Championship. Dad loved fishing and would often take my kids in Wilmette and back in New Jersey. And when I didn't know where to go for bait, he flew on a plane with a container of live worms and then put them in our refrigerator, much to our dismay. But we caught fish. Dad was also so passionate about music. He loved to sing and play the ukulele with us, and I remember waking up every Sunday to a Broadway musical playing on the stereo. To this day, music is such an important part of my life. And at his birthday party a few years ago, my kids all sang from Mamma Mia, one of his favorite musicals, "Thank You for the Music," which is so true to him. Dad, I can go on and on about all your diverse interests and amazing accomplishments. But most importantly, I want to tell you how lucky I am to have had you for a father. And my kids so lucky to have you as a grandpa. Even living far away, our relationship was so very strong and connected. We visited and spoke all the time. And when Mom passed, we spoke every day, usually at night, to know that you were okay and to say I love you. And I hope you understand why I had to keep one little secret from you these last few months. That it broke my heart, but I know it was for the best. Thank you. Oh, it's hard to cry and read with glasses when you're this old. Thank you for all the wonderful times, always coming to hear me sing and act, even when I was Marie out in New Jersey. All the daddy-daughter dinner dances, walking me down the aisle, carpooling, traveling, pontoon boats, driving movies, family life, parties, and more. You have been an amazing teacher, advisor, protector, song partner, handyman, and friend. You were always there for us and with us. I read once that when your first parent dies, it's like a comma. But when your second parent dies, it's a period. But Dad, this is not a period. It's not the end for us. You and Mom, your love, your down-to-earth values, and the passion for everything I hold near and dear will live on through me and my family. And as we used to sing together for Music Man, when we would duet it, dream of now, dream of then. Do I love you? Yes, I love you. And I'll bravely tell you, but only when we dream again. I've read this so many times, and yet I still have to look at it. Thanks for all the Thanks for being the most amazing, wonderful dad, and for giving me the most amazing, wonderful life. I will always hold you in my heart. Give Mom a big hug and kiss from me, and I'll see you when we dream again. I love you.
Thank you so much, Lori. Beautiful. And now, the youngest sibling, I ask Steve to come up and share.
My dad would always like to say, Steve, do you know what I really want people to say at my funeral? Hey, look, he moved. He loved jokes like that. And I have no doubt that if his body didn't give out, he would have loved to have been here and gone on forever. I think it's so fitting that Dad died on the first day of spring, a time when the days are getting longer, the weather's getting warmer, spring training is kicking in, and it's a time of hope and renewal and rebirth. I don't think Dad would have wanted us getting together during the holidays doing this, or in the cold months of January or February. He was looking out for us always like that. Someone asked me, I spent a lot of time with my dad these last few months, and someone asked me, did Dad have any big epiphanies or any realizations about life? And we had a lot of conversations towards the end, but it didn't really go there to those kind of topics. And I was thinking about it the next night, why was that? And I think the reason is that Dad isn't someone who needed to face death to truly understand the secret to life. I think he always knew the secret to life. And he actually wrote it down here. I stumbled across this on his desk when I would work at his desk when I was visiting him. And it's one of those cognitive tests that they give people, and he had to draw something and do something else. And he had to write a sentence. And he wrote a very simple 3-word sentence. I love life. And I can't think of a more truthful sentence that captures what Dad was about. He loved life. He loved to live. He loved taking advantage of moments, seizing the day, never waiting for tomorrow, what you could do right now. He loved to laugh, and it was a kind, jovial sense of humor, always inclusive and playful. And he would laugh with his customers, and he would laugh with his caregivers, Nikki and Marcia, who were so helpful. And he would laugh with the nurses at North Shore Place. The other day, somebody came in, and she hadn't seen him in a while, and said, oh, I remember Sid. He's got the fun sense of humor. And I said, oh, yeah. And he loved to love. Marco Rubio, this thing for a second. He loved to love. He loved people. He loved everybody in this room. And he loved Mom, and they shared a beautiful 66-year marriage. And when she passed away 7 years ago, I think a lot of people might have assumed, and I assumed, they'd be one of those couples that he would die shortly after. They were so enmeshed. But he was so resilient. It's one of the things I'm most proud of him about. And he kept on living. And in fact, he kind of reinvented himself. He started wearing these colorful suspenders. His hair went au natural. He found himself a companion to go to movies with, and he just kept living and loving life. And for me, this love, it's been the most profound love of my life. He's my best friend. And just some memories that stand out, waking me up before school, and he'd come into the room singing, school days, school days. It wasn't enough to just shake me. Or I'd be studying upstairs, and I'd hear from downstairs, 1 game. And I knew I'd come down, and we'd play one of those hockey games down in the basement, and it was always 2 out of 3. Or leaving concert tickets on the steps going up to my bedroom so I would discover them. It wasn't just handed to me. I would discover them, and he could hear me giddy with excitement. The car rides to and from Little League games and basketball games, the anticipation there, the recapping of the game back. So many, just a lifetime of memories. But I will oddly say that of all the fun and adventures that I've had with my dad, by far the most fun was this last year. I remember going to see North Shore Place with him and how excited he seemed to get into it. And when he moved in there, he just threw himself into everything. He'd get the sheet in the morning, and he'd look at all the activities, and he got into chair volleyball and saw all the movies and the music. And I'd get calls at night, Steve, you're not going to believe what happens today. And I'd say, Dad, your life's pretty busy. You don't know the half of it. And then at the age of 91, he fell in love again with Karen. And it was so beautiful to watch those two laughing together and sharing life together and being there for each other, helping them navigate North Shore Place in this time in life. And even towards the end, I would say towards the end of last year, you know, he was taking a downward turn. And there was a little period of time when he seemed like he was ready to let go of this joy of life that has so defined him. And then one day he kind of comes out the room, he's getting pushed in his wheelchair. He said, Steve, I've changed my mind. I think I want to stick around a little longer. And I said, Dad, we can't predict when you're going to go, but as long as you're here, let's keep having fun. And that's what he did. He was seeing movies every night. He was laughing with Karen. He was going to the sing-alongs. Even when he got COVID, he didn't have symptoms, but he was in isolation for 10 days. And I remember kind of coming into the room and opening the door and standing at the front of the door, and Dad just says, "Well, this is another adventure, isn't it?" He truly squeezed every last drop out of his magnificent life, right up until the end. And the night after he passed, the night that he passed, I went back to his apartment, and I watched Lawrence Welk. We used to like watching that show together. It was one of his favorite shows. And about 30 minutes in, this singer comes on, and he's standing in front of a white gate, and he lets out this buoyant song, and he tenor voice, and it's, "I love life, I want to live." And I was a little creeped out because I came up with this angle of the "I love life" before seeing that. And it, whether you believe in those kind of messages from beyond or not, I, in my own head, like to think that he's still someplace, somewhere, enjoying life. And what I have in my head is that right now he's walking towards a white light, and he emerges from the dugout at Wrigley Field, and he walks to the field, and he's met by his friend Bob Platt. I don't know why Bob Platt, but that's who greets him in heaven in my mind. And Bob says, "Come on, Sid, I got someplace to take you." And they walk out to center field and go through the ivy. This part I stole from Field of Dreams. And they're now standing in the backyard at 3238 Greenleaf, where I grew up, where a lot of us grew up. And it's a summer night, and it's one of those great family barbecues. Maybe some of you remember those, with the umbrella up. And all the people that he's had to say goodbye to all these years, they're all there to welcome him. All his friends, his bridge friends, his fishing friends, his football friends. He had so many friends. And all the people from our family, Grandpa Fred, Grandma Anna, that whole generation, they're all there to greet him. And then out from the crowd, I picture Mom coming towards him, and she's got one of those knob-off white and chocolate layer cakes for him, which he'd probably eat in 2 sittings. And the two of them get on their tandem bicycle and ride off on Greenleaf Street. And from a distance, we hear him say, "Sonia, you need to actually pedal. You can't just move your legs." That would happen. But I'd like to close by saying Dad has given all of us and me so many gifts, emotional gifts over the years. But I think for me, he saved the last one for last. It was about a week before he passed, and he was getting weaker, but he was still communicating. And he looked up to me from his bed, and he said, "Remember, you'll always be my son." And what a gift to hear that as I move forward, and just know that I'll always be his son. And since my dad was a big baseball fan, I'll close by paraphrasing a line from a movie that we watched together. It's a famous baseball movie. And that's, "They say we've been given a bad break, but today I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth, because I got to be Sid Doppelt's son."
Wow. I don't really know what to say now. I'm going to share just a little bit of something that that came to my mind as you were speaking. A few things came to my mind as all of you were speaking. The legacy that this wonderful man has given you is huge. I mean, it's really hard to think of, one thing that it might be, and there is no one thing. He has a legacy of love, which is incomparable. And a word I really count on for special people is kindness. I think kindness has different definitions to different people. Sometimes it's opening a door. Sometimes it's giving them money when they need it. But to me, kindness means knowing what each individual person needs and giving that to them. It's not the same thing for every person. It's different for every single one. I just want to share a little bit of this with you. What will your legacy be to the ones you hold so dear? Among the other treasures, will there be kindness enough to share? Compassion makes us strong, so keep 3 things in mind, 3 things to pass along. They are: be kind, be kind, be kind. Shem Tov Nishar LaNetzach. A good name endures forever. I was thinking, Sid. That's a good name. He will always have that good name. It will live forever. But 2 words came to my mind: the joy, simcha, and that security, that protection he gave you, shomer. And those are the 2 names that I would like to add to Sidney Doppelt. He was the shomer hasimcha. He was the protector of joy. And he shared that with all of you. He was a man of intellect, warmth, action, so much more. At 93, he'd only been retired from his family business for 10 years. And on his way to those last years, he was still a busy man. He was born in Chicago. He came to America his parents came to America from Europe, Ukraine, and a Polish settlement. And I'm sure his European parents inspired a work ethic that he continued throughout his life. And he was the oldest of 3 children, and I'm really happy, very happy to say that his sister Judy and her husband Abel are here today. Sid met his soulmate, Sonia, on a double date. It was a really good date. They ended up with different people. He wasn't on the date with Sonia, but that's who he ended up with. Somewhere in that evening, they ended up together. They went to prom together, and they danced to love letters. And the rest was history. This happy couple, they traveled extensively through Europe, Asia, cruises, and just like so many of you have said, he always enjoyed life. They had a really loving marriage, and mainly because Sonia came up with all the ideas, and Sid would make them happen. No matter what they were doing, whether they had a shared interest or different interests, they were always together. And your mom, Sonia, just as the rest of you, she always felt that strong sense of security that your dad provided. And one of the really important things out of all the many things that he shared with all of you was his love of music. The couple, Sid and Sonia, they often sang Sonny Boy together. And the entire musical family, all of you would harmonize, sing and harmonize together. I think that's amazing. That's such a gift. And I hope that the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren will continue that. I can tell you this is one of the many cherished memories that they all share. They went to musicals, especially Sound of Music, Oklahoma. This was a big part of your lives. You all, the entire family, went on many trips together, and believe me, Sid made everything an adventure, and we heard that told to us. Whether it was by car or train, all of America was at their disposal. Now, Sid received a bachelor degree in mechanical engineering, and maybe that explained why his learned and natural ability to fix anything. Whenever he arrived at one of your homes, one of children's homes, he was presented with a list of repairs, and they were fixed by complex or simple means. A broken garbage disposal, give me a broom. Shove the broom down, whoosh, it's fixed. I learned later, after I spoke with his children, that his ability to fix things also went to his ability to listen and to maybe fix the problems that each family member was facing. This is a great gift. Sid's work was an important part of his life, but even so, everyone was quick to share with me that their father was always there for them. He always came home for dinner. He never missed dinner. Which was interesting because later on we hear that he really didn't like to be in the kitchen, and Sonia's favorite place wasn't the kitchen either. And yet, great family dinners. He carpooled, he attended every one of Debbie's and Rick's and Lori's and Steve's, and later all the grandchildren's events. And we're talking recitals, plays, concerts, and all the sporting events. And I'm pretty sure game board events too. Sid was the pitcher of his own high school baseball team, and he even played in Wrigley Field. In fact, as you heard, Sid had his own 15 minutes of fame when he was in the movie A League of Their Own. Someday you have to tell me what that part was. He even came out of retirement to coach his grandchildren's team, and he was awarded for his well-known efforts as coach of Steve's Little League and other Little League teams. He was a great enthusiast of many sports, I guess not soccer so much, but baseball was his passion. And Steve, you remember going to 2 Super Bowls with your dad. And another one of Sid's talents was that he could sing any college fight song. I can't imagine how he found the time. But in addition to his devotion to all his family's games and events, he loved to garden, to fish, and he and his beautiful wife were expert bridge players. He even once played with Omar Sharif. And if you're too young to remember him, watch Funny Girl. That was another brush with fame. The only thing that the kids could come up with that Sid wasn't great at was cooking, which is okay, because many of us don't like to cook. But thank God Jill loves to cook for the whole family. Sid was the patriarch of this family. He had many, many friends. He was very social. And when we spoke the other night, all of the siblings came up with these beautiful ways to describe their dad. They were all good. There was not a moment, not even a second where it's like, well, there was that. No, nothing. Nothing. It was all wonderful memories and positive lessons. He had a sense of humor and generous. But he was generous in every way, with his soul, with his spirit, with his time, with his love. He was proactive and a great decision maker, and his timing was impeccable. Now, I'm not sure if that meant that he was good at telling jokes or just arriving on time. Arriving on time. Jokes too, okay. And he was neat. As you heard, his garage was perfect. Now, Sid was surrounded by a very loving family during his life. He was blessed and had the joy of having his sister and her Abel with him, sharing his long and fulfilled life. And each of his kids have had wonderful memories that they've shared with us. He had 4 children to begin with, and then 2 more when they married in. His Debbie, Rick and Jill, Lori and Stephen, and Steve, they all love their dad deeply, as he loved them. I know your dad was extremely grateful to you, Steve, for relocating from the East Coast and being with him these last months. And Sid was blessed with many, many grandchildren. And even if they were out of town and they couldn't be here in person, technology always helped them to reach out to their grandfather. I'm going to make the list clear because I do not want to make a mistake. The grandchildren: Eli, Sari, Jacqueline, Jennifer, Jason, Justin, Mitchell, Natalie. He loved each and every one of you and was so glad to share moments with you. And then his grandchildren, great-grandchildren: Eliza, Sadie, Remy, Graham, Alex, Samo, Finn. Did I say it wrong? Okay, I don't want to make a mistake. Malcolm, Daphne, and Calvin. What a joy. What a joy. His children, his grandchildren, great children. His life is an example to all of us to live every moment. I truly can't tell you how much I believe that. You can't wait. You cannot wait because you do not know what that next phone call is going to bring. You do not know what's going to happen tomorrow. And if you're enjoying a moment, if you're in a moment right now, don't waste it. Sid never did. No. Some of you proudly told me that he was a model of a life well lived. He had wisdom, he had talent, and he was thoughtful. He could fix anything. So now, as you go through your days and you look at your problems, you can ask yourself, what would Dad do? Sidney Doppelt, a good name that will endure forever. And now, Sid and Sonia, they're singing Sunny Boy together again. And I asked if there was a special song that meant something to the family, and this was from Sound of Music. Edelweiss, Edelweiss, every morning you greet me, small and white, clean and bright. You look happy to meet me, blossom of snow, may you bloom and grow forever. Edelweiss, Edelweiss, bless my homeland forever. There are two traditional prayers we say at every Jewish funeral. The first one is El Malei Rachamim. I seem to be misplacing everything today. I think it's on your handout, the back. And in English, this is a prayer. Now, I remember one of you referred to him being an angel. I think that was you, Rick. I believe in angels. I firmly believe in angels. As a matter of fact, I believe in angels so strongly that even if you don't, I believe enough for all of us. In this prayer, we are visualizing your beloved Sid surrounded by the 4 archangels. And their job, and they have jobs, their job is to escort him safely and peacefully up to heaven, to see God, to see your mother, to see all of those he loved. These angels are bringing him peace and the security that he always shared with you. And now it's his turn to receive it. So I will read the English and then I will sing the Hebrew. O God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest beneath the sheltering wings of thy presence and among the holy and pure who shine as the brightness of the firmament unto the soul of Sidney Doppelt, who has gone unto eternity. Lord of mercy, bring him under the cover of thy wings, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Sid, be God's possession, and may his repose be peace. I'm going to ask you to rise for this prayer. Il mali rachamim shochein bamromin hametzein necha nechanat achat kanfei hashechina im kedoshim u'tahorim k'zahar harakia mazhirim et nishmat Sidney שהלך לעולמו בעל הרחמים יסתירהו בסתר כנפיו לעולמים בצרור החיים את נשמתו אדוני הוא נחלתו וינוח בשלום על משכבו ונאמר Amen. And now we are going to say this beautiful prayer, Kaddish, that we say for our beloved to give their soul strength, as they go through to this next part of their journey. And it is a journey, because I guarantee you all the love that you feel will help you really sense Sid, your dad, around you, your grandfather, your great-grandfather. You will feel him just through your love. And when you sense him, this is a prayer. And when you do sense him, talk to him. Talk to him. I can guarantee you he hears you now. This prayer is something that we've been saying for generations and generations, and it does not speak of death. It does not speak of death. It speaks of our faith. It is in your handout on the last page. Yitkadal v'yikadash shemei rabba, amen. V'yamad divrei herotei, v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayachon u'v'yomachon, u'v'chayetachol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kori v'imru. Thank you. Yehei shmei rabba mevarach le'alam, ol omei, ol ma'amaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'ba'ar, v'yitroman v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalel v'yitalal, shemei d'kudisha brichu. Le'ela min kol bechata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechemata, da'amiran b'yalma v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim, aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Ose shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Please be seated.
Friends, this concludes the services here at the chapel. The interment will continue on at West Lawn Cemetery. The family has requested that any memorial contributions be made to the Wilmette Baseball Association or the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and that information is available on our website. At this time, we are going to conclude the transmission of the live stream, and we thank you for attending virtually. For those of you who've been asked to serve as pallbearers, we'll invite you to come forward and assist with the casket as we escort the family and the rabbi from the chapel. Thank you.